Day 3 of the Donna Adelson testimony. It did not disappoint. We're going to hear all about the testimony of Wendi Adelson's boyfriend at the time of the murder and one of Charlie Adelson's former girlfriends. He has a lot of former girlfriends. But if you wouldn't mind watching this intro first, and then we'll get right into what was the testimony. So I would be totally remiss if I didn't have my Taylor Swift cup today and mention that they're engaged. Oh, it's a love story, baby. Just say yes. I don't know. 20 people just turned the channel. Anyway, I'm showing my age. Turn the channel. Anyway, welcome back, everybody. If you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button and subscribe. It's free. So I just have to start out my recap of yesterday by, I like to bring a little levity to all of this, even though it's a very, very serious matter. But you guys got to see this. All right, just let me add this to the stage. Watch this for a second, and watch. Let me just say this: the '80s called. They want their dress back. So watch this. Yeah. What in the world? Where are they even selling that dress? Like, who, what? Yeah. Sorry, sweetie. That look didn't cut it. It was just, it brought back memories. Let me just say that. The high collar, the shoulder pads. Oh, geez. Anyway, so we got the testimony. We're going to start out with testimony of Jeffrey Lacasse. He was the boyfriend of Wendi Adelson at the time of the murder. Now, Wendi is the victim, Dan Markel's ex-wife. They're going through this contentious divorce. Her family allegedly hires hitmen to murder him. And that's why we're sitting here today, because the hitmen are in jail. The person that hired the hitmen are in jail. The person that hired the hitman are in jail. And now we're getting to the mastermind. Or are we getting to the mastermind? Because it seems to me like a lot of the evidence is against Wendi Adelson. A lot of what we heard yesterday implicates Wendi, not Donna. Yeah. Is it possible that Wendi is the mastermind and not Donna? She's just taking the fall for her daughter? I think the testimony, the recap you're going to hear tomorrow kind of debunks that, but just give it some thought. Anyway, Jeffrey Lacasse is a professor of social work at FSU, and that's what he was doing at the time. He started casually dating Wendi Adelson in September of 2013. The relationship accelerated after Halloween, and then by early 2014, they were exclusive. He would visit the kids, and he had a relationship with the kids. Like, he was always over her house, and vice versa. Anyway, so he said he sort of adopted the view of Donna Adelson, that Dan Markel was a very difficult person, because all the information he had about Dan Markel was coming through Wendi Adelson. So he said Wendi absolutely, despite what she will tell everybody else, she denies this, but she told him she hated Tallahassee, hated it. Now, she will never admit to that. She's, oh, no, it was a nice lifestyle. No. Anyway, he said this was a family without boundaries. Like, this guy was swinging for the fences. I've heard him in all of the prior proceedings testify, but like he was just trying to knock it out of the park and get Wendi under the gun here. He said Donna Adelson was very involved in Wendi's life and in the divorce proceedings. He met her mom a few times. He recalled one time meeting her when she came up to visit. Apparently, Mama Adelson spent a lot of time in Tallahassee helping her daughter out. But so one of those times he goes over and he has dinner with Donna. He said that was about mid-November, and Harvey was not there. He said there was a lot of times she would visit and not have Harvey there. So he said between September and early May, so the entirety of their relationship, pretty much the beginning of the relationship, he said Donna would come and she would stay for extended periods of time. So he said she would be there for a while. Then he recalls meeting Catherine Magbanua at a dinner at Yardbirds. They had Charlie was dating Catherine Magbanua. Catherine is the go-between Charlie and the hitman. She hired the hitman, and she is serving a life sentence. So they were having dinner, and Catherine brought up her children's father, Sigfredo Garcia. And he thought that was kind of strange. It was a very awkward conversation because this guy's kind of a gang member. And anyway, so that night he actually stayed with Charlie. Charlie had an apartment. He had a roommate, another dentist, and so he stayed there. But before they went to bed that night, they all get into the hot tub. Now, Wendi's not there, but he's there. Catherine Magbanua was there. Charlie's there, and they're all in the hot tub. And Charlie's bragging about, I'm not even sure Catherine was there. It was the guys there. Anyway, Charlie's kind of bragging about knowing people on both sides of the fences. And he thought that was kind of strange too. That he knew people from both sides of the track. So now some interesting line of questioning. The prosecution asked him, was there a time when Wendi asked you a question about the children's memory? And he said, yeah. She asked me, when do children develop autobiographical memories? And he said, and he starts to answer the question. He says, and I told her that it was, you have amnesia before the age of 3. Then about 3 to 4, you start to develop some memories, but it's not till about 5 or 6 is what he told her. Well, there's an objection. Everybody's out of their chair, lengthy sidebars. I mean, he sends the jury out for a while. They come back, they're looking for something, and apparently something that could not be found. So here's what went down. When they come back, the judge finds that there's been a discovery violation on the part of the prosecution. So here's what happened. This line of questioning, like I told you, Jeffrey Lacasse has been in multiple trials. We've heard testimony. We've never heard this before. This is out of the blue, never heard this before. Neither had the defense. And, if your witness is going to testify to new information that's never been heard before, you've got to disclose that. That way the defense has an opportunity to depose him and ask him questions about this line of questioning. And they were actually objecting on a couple of grounds. The first ground was, wait a minute, you're trying to backdoor this guy as an expert. He's a fact witness. He's not here as an expert. And she's like, no, he's got the credentials. He's got a master's and PhD in social work. He's a professor. So he got past that hurdle, but then the discovery hurdle. So Georgia is sitting at her desk and she's looking through everything, trying to find where this has come up before. It never did. So when the judge comes back, she's got to fall on her shield, fall on her sword, and just say, okay, it's not there. And he goes, I realize there's been 5, 6 trials. She goes, no, Judge, just 4. just 4. But so he did find that there was a discovery violation. She should not have gone into this if she had disclosed that this was going to be coming out at trial. So, but he found it to be inadvertent, trivial is the term that he used. And what he did was when the jury came back, he gave the jury an instruction to disregard anything that was said on that topic. Well, honey, cat's out of the bag. They all heard it. She's asking, Wendi is asking, what are my kids going to remember about this? Murder. That's what she's thinking of it in her head. It's not what she said to him, but you get my drift, right? They know it now. Okay. So she moves along and he talks about this trip that they had planned, the 11th through the 17th. They had planned a trip. She cancels it at the last minute, cancels the trip. And she's like, oh no. And he said, he was asking, why did she cancel the trip? And he says, well, because all the things going on with Dan Markel, which was a constant refrain. And she was worried that she wouldn't be back in time to pick up her boys on the 18th. She didn't have to pick up her boys on the 18th until 5 p.m. Did she know what was going to go down on the 18th? She also knew that he was scheduled to go out of town that Saturday, the following day. When she cancels her plans and doesn't want to go with him on this trip, he changes his plans and leaves on the day before the hitmen arrived. So he had an alibi. He was out of town the day the murders happened. Then he also mentioned that when the hitmen came up the first time, they came up to Tallahassee twice. The first time was to kind of scope everything out. And then the second time was the murder. But the first time they came up, he was also scheduled to be out of town the next day. It was also mentioned to the jury, it was shown to the jury, the similarity between the car that was rented and the car that is owned by Jeffrey Lacasse, or owned at the time. Very similar looking vehicles. Were they trying to make him the fall guy for this murder? I think that's what he believes. So he was talking about Wendi's demeanor prior to the murder. He said she was a nervous, anxious wreck. Called him, her stomach's upset. He comes over and brings her medicine. But he said, it wasn't the flu. It wasn't, food poisoning. She was just nervous wreck. And he talked about the broken TV. He said the screen was shattered. He says it was implausible that the kids did this. No, he said it looked like somebody that was, tall, stood up in front of that TV and just smashed it in. And when he was over there one night, Wendi made him and the boys, even though there was another TV available, made him and the boys watch a movie on this broken screen TV. Anyway, on July 13th, the Sunday before the murder, I want you to hear a conversation he has with Donna Adelson. I'm sorry, with Wendi.
We're on the disagreement, didn't see her for a while, saw her on July 13th. And you were at her residence. What was the plan for that evening?
I didn't know. It was just to spend time together and maybe talk about the relationship some, but we were conversing. We had conversations.
Were the kids there that night?
They were not.
Okay, so it's just the two of you at the residence?
Just the two of us.
All right. And did the subject of relocation come up?
Yes.
In what context?
It came up in the context of whenever Wendi got back from Miami, she was always very upset about the fact that the relocation had previously been denied. I mean, it had been legally denied, but she wasn't over it. It was a constant refrain about how much she hated Tallahassee. So we're talking about the future of our relationship. And I'm asking, are you going to be here? Because with the constant complaining about how hard it was on her parents to transport the kids and just the constant complaining, just thinking, is she even going to be here? Is it worth trying to push forward in the relationship? And she said the only way that I'd ever relocate is if something would have to happen to Danny.
Subject to the same ruling at sidebar. The objection is overruled pending the other matters that do have to be addressed. You may continue, Ms. Kappelman.
Please repeat your answer.
Yeah, the only way she'd ever be able to relocate is if something happened to Danny, was the first statement.
Okay, and did she mention anything further about something
Well,
happening to Danny?
can I give the context before the next?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was getting a little tired of this whole drama around the relocation. And so I pushed back on Wendi a little bit and said, like, you're going to have to kind of make your peace with this. You're going to take some responsibility for this. You're linked to Dan Markel for life. Kind of challenged her a little bit. And she said, well, can I tell you something confidentially? And I said, sure. And she said, last summer.
Same ruling remains. The objection is overruled. You may continue with your answer.
She
Can
said,
I tell you something in confidence?
yeah, can I tell you something? After I challenge her, can I tell you something in confidence? Sure. Well, last summer, my brother looked into all options possible to take care of the Danny Markel problem, including hiring a hitman, and it would cost about $15,000.
Okay, and when she referred to her brother, she's got two of those, right?
She said Charlie.
Okay. And when she said Charlie looked into hiring a hitman, are you familiar with Charlie's joke? I looked into hiring a hitman, but got you a TV as a divorce present because it was cheaper.
Yeah, Wendi told me that joke a couple of times. This was not that joke.
Okay, so this was something different.
Yeah, the joke was said with levity. It's a dark joke, but this I found chilling. I found disturbing. It made my stomach flip. It kind of took me aback. She was dead serious when she said this. And she'd asked to tell me in confidence, which you don't do before you tell a joke.
Okay.
So interesting. So what does this have to do with Donna? Nothing has everything to do with Wendi. I mean, let's go pick Wendi up on the airport concourse, shall we? Yeah, this is craziness. So let's get back to the thing he talked about. They had a yoga date. When they got back from this yoga date, he turned to walk away. And when he turned, he said things were so awkward on this yoga date and they weren't really speaking to each other. And he felt like things were over. So he just kind of turned around and walked away from her. And she called after him and she's like, when are you going on your trip? Are you going on your trip Friday? Okay, I guess it was Friday he was supposed to go on the trip. I don't know, Saturday. Anyway, so and she's asking him all about his trip. So then they go their separate ways, and then he gets an email later on saying that she doesn't want to have any more contact with him for a week. And he figured, okay, she's ending things, but he really felt like she was just stringing him along. There was one, he talked about pulling art off the wall. He said that she had this artwork in her house that the kids had done and had been out there the entirety of their relationship, several months. But before the murder, she starts packing it up. She starts taking it off the wall. Okay, on cross-examination, he described Wendi as a deeply deceitful person. I thought that was really interesting. Okay, then we get June Umchenda. June is a former girlfriend of Charlie Adelson. She actually lived with him for a period of time between October of 2015. This is after the murder. October 2015 through June of 2017. She was his girlfriend. She said the relationship changed after the bump. What's the bump? That's when the police are trying to increase chatter about the murder, and they approached Donna Adelson with this piece of paper asking for $5,000 to, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, to keep everything secret. So, which starts the whole everybody talking about the murder again, because it had been 2 years since the murder. Well, Umchenda, June, and I just have to say, all of Charlie Adelson's girlfriends look exactly alike. He likes that Filipino long dark hair look. They all look like that. It's kind of interesting. So she said that after the bump, he started losing sleep. He was getting anxious, depressed. She did see that he had large amounts of cash that he would staple together in stacks of hundreds. And then he would put them into bundles, and he kept them in a safe. Now they were like, do you know how many? And she's like, oh, quite a few. That was as narrow as she could get. He noticed that he was communicating. She noticed that he was communicating a lot about Catherine Magbanua, and Catherine was they're going back and forth about what are they going to do about this piece of paper that Donna Adelson was. Are they going to pay the $5,000? Are they not going to pay the $5,000? But they were talking at all kinds of odd hours, and she noticed this. She said Charlie was taking painkillers for stress. And she mentioned a conversation she had with Donna Adelson, where Donna said her life was crumbling down and she feels like Dan's back from the grave hunting her. Hi, baby. Then we get Ryan Fitzpatrick takes the stand. He is a friend of Charlie Adelson, and he said that basically Charlie was really stressed out after the bump. Talked about this a lot. He was very worried, very upset, and he did confirm that Charlie kept large amounts of cash stapled together in a safe in his home. The next person on the stand is Catherine Magbanua. Now, I'm on the phone, discussing the Taylor Swift thing with Joanna, and Catherine comes on the screen. I'm like, oh, gotta go. She took the stand. Okay, and she listen, she's still lying. She's still lying, you guys. I don't know what the truth is anymore. She admitted that she lied in her first two trials. When asked why she lied, because she vehemently denied being involved in any of this in the first two trials. And she said the reason she did it is because she was being tried with Sigfredo Garcia in the first trial. And he was at risk for the death penalty. This is the father of her children. The hitman was the father of her children. She did not want him to get a death penalty. So she's trying to protect him. She sat in that prison, jail, for 6 years. The prosecution just waited and waited and waited. They offered her like immunity to testify, and she refused. So they had to try her, and she got life in prison. Like, she rolled the dice and it didn't work out. She got a mistrial the first time, and then we had to come back and second trial. Second trial, same thing. She takes a stand, vehemently denies any involvement. The reason she says is because she'd already denied it the first time, so she just kept it going. Now she gets life in sentence without the possibility of parole. She gets a conscience, and now she wants to help out with the hope, even though there's no deal on the table, with the hope that the prosecution will let her see her kids one day. In other words, make her eligible for parole. I don't think that's going to happen, Catherine. I got to keep all these people straight. Catherine, it's not going to happen, sweetheart, because you didn't even tell the truth today when you were on the stand. You were lying. So she did admit now she's in Charlie's trial. She changed her tune. She's whistling. She's singing Dixie and telling the whole truth. So she's doing the same thing yesterday on the stand. She said, yes, I was the middleman in all of this. She was hired by Charlie. She said that at the time she was dating Charlie, she began dating him in the beginning of 2013 and continued until 2015. So until after the murder. So on October of 2013, he approaches her. And this is like, I think it's Halloween night. They're down on Lincoln Road, which is this unbelievable shops in South Beach. Just crazy. Anyway, they're there, and he gets in the car with her, and he's like, do you know somebody that can harm someone? And of course, she did. And he said she knew Charlie was going through a financial situation, that his parents were becoming big problems for him. So she agreed. She said, yeah, I know somebody. Yeah, we can make this happen. So she said, now anytime that they would be conversing about the murder, he would have to step out and speak to Donna. Sometimes 2 or 3 times, sometimes 5 times. He'd get up, he'd leave and go out and talk to Donna in the middle of them conversing about this murder. So at one point, she goes over to his house, and she does her usual thing. They spend the night, she's got a babysitter. She's going over to visit her boyfriend and ends up spending the night. The next day, he says, I put a manila envelope in your diaper bag. Give that to the person you're going to hire, basically. So she doesn't look in there. She says, oh, no, I never looked in the envelope. I don't know what was in there. Now, presumably, it was instructions on how to carry out the murder, who's going to be where and when, and how much was going to be paid. So she gives the envelope to Sigfredo. She never looks into it. So when she found out that Sigfredo was going to go up to Tallahassee, she got $400 cash from Charlie so they could have some spending money when they went up to Tallahassee. So, which none of this jives with what she says later on, is that she didn't know Sigfredo was going to be the one to do the shooting. She thought, I don't know what she thought. She is completely denying that she knew Sigfredo was going to be the one to do this murder. She's completely denying knowing any involvement of Luis Rivera. Didn't know he was going to have Luis help him, which makes no sense. She doesn't even know how much they're going to get paid, because that was probably in the envelope. Doesn't have any idea how much. Someone is asking you to hire somebody for murder, and you don't know how much you're going to get from this? Okay. She's not telling the truth. Still not telling the truth. So going back to the paycheck thing, she said she was getting a paycheck from the Adelson Institute after the murder. I think it amounted to 44 paychecks. Sometimes they would be backdated. Sometimes they were forward. She'd get 4 or 5 paychecks at the same time with the instructions, just don't cash them all at the same time. Sometimes she'd have to cash them early. And she did. And this all came out when they got their records. So fast forward to the night of the murder, she gets a call from Charlie saying, there's been an accident. Can you let's have dinner. So she goes over to his house. He's pacing back and forth. He's got a gun. She said his parents had just left. So they both take a Xanax, to calm things down, and they go to bed, and she spends the night. And the next morning, he tells her, I put the money in the trunk of your car. In a bag. She never looks to see how much it is or anything. She doesn't even look in the trunk to see if it's there. She just leaves the next morning, drives off, drives over to find Sigfredo, can't find Sigfredo, drives over to Luis Rivera's house, even though she didn't know Luis Rivera was involved. But she knew that Sigfredo and Luis were good friends and thought he might be over there. Anyway, she finally hooks up with Sigfredo. He takes the money out of the trunk, and then later on, the next day, comes back to their house and puts it in the closet. Gives her cut of it, which she never counted. She doesn't know how much money she was given. She never counted it. Let me tell you something about Catherine Magbanua. This woman is smart. She's not a dummy. I'm telling you, she knew how much this murder was going to pay, and she counted that cash. I guarantee you. In any case, she mentioned that the cash was wet. It had been laundered. And Charlie says, yeah, my mom washed it. She didn't want any evidence, so she washed the money. The money was damp. Okay. Crazy. So then we fast forward to the bump. Oh, by the way, the paychecks for the Adelson Institute, which she admitted she did not work there. I didn't do anything for those paychecks. They were, she needed to show a steady income in order to live where she wanted to live. Anyway, so the bump happens. So, it's 2 years have gone by. Police are putting all the pieces together, and they need to get people talking. So they do this bump that I described earlier. Afterwards, Charlie calls her, and they have this conversation. They meet, they converse in the car a little while. They go in the restaurant. We've heard in the last few trials the enhanced version of what was being said, a lot of code words and stuff. But basically, he wanted her to call the number on that piece of paper. They, contemplating, it's paying this $5,000. If we pay it, they're just going to come back and ask for more and more and more, or it's the police and this is a sting operation, one of the two. What does she do with the piece of paper? She gives it to Sigfredo and tells him to call the number. Yeah, interesting, huh? All right, so that is her testimony. The next person on the stand is the digital forensic. Oh, I did forget the money person. There was a financial person that took the stand that followed all the money, who spent what, where, when. So it was clear that there were large amounts of cash going in and out of Catherine Magbanua's bank account. When she goes to get the breast augmentation, which cost $4,000, there was no withdrawal of $4,000 from her account to match someone pay that. So I assume that went for the came from the Adelsons. She bought Harvey Adelson's old Lexus, but there's no corresponding financial record showing any money coming out of the account that would have been used to pay for a vehicle. Yeah. So she was getting a lot of perks from Charlie Adelson, but these all ended when Sigfredo got arrested. It all came to an end. All right, so the last person on the stand is the digital forensics guy. I'm going to cover all that because he's continuing today, and he just barely got into his testimony yesterday. He is actually going to break down every single cell phone of all the players in this thing, every piece of digital evidence. He's put it all chronologically. So I imagine it's going to take the entire day tomorrow to go through that, but I'm going to recap all of that for you in one episode. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this case. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. I am covering this live. If you want to just sit and watch the trial, you could do that. So you'll find my channel live. I just jump in and out. I'm not there constantly because I got things to do. But I am listening. Wherever I am, I'm listening because I got to recap this for you. So have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.